Hello and welcome to the KeesKast. I'm your host, Captain David J. Murphy. Joining me today are two guests that are going to talk to us a little bit about the Foster Care and Adoption Option Workshop that's coming up on May 22nd, right here on Keesler Air Force Base at the Sadlick Center at 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. My guests are Joy Brown and Rhonda Ferrell, both of the Airmen and Family Readiness Center. Ladies, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us a little about who you are and what you do for the 81st Force Support Squadron. We'll start with you, Joy.
Okay, sounds good. So my name is Joy, and I actually do a little bit of everything at the Airmen and Family Readiness Center. I am currently getting my master's in social work, so I've doing kind of some volunteer and also intern work for them. So I have got to experience a lot since I've been here, and I work on a little bit of everything every day.
Nice. Okay, great. And Rhonda?
I am Rhonda Ferrell. I'm a community readiness specialist with Airmen and Family Readiness. I work in the personal and work life section. My biggest events that I handle there are the HeartLink program. That's a spouse orientation program for new spouses, and the KeesKast program. We also do the adoption, and we do elder care events, and we're working with Joy on this adoption program, and super, super excited to have her in our office.
All right, great. Well, I'm excited to have both of you here today in my studio to talk about this awesome program. Now, let's go ahead and talk about kind of where this program came from, because I've been here for almost 3 years, and I've never heard of this adoption workshop. So is this a new idea? And if so, who thought of it?
So I would say that it's not necessarily a new idea. It's kind of in the Airmen Family Readiness, umbrella, and it's just something that hasn't been a lot of, I would say, emphasis put on it in recent years. So with this year, we really wanted to kind of give it a little extra oomph, and this is something I'm really passionate about personally, and it's part of my personal life story as well. So, for me, it's something when I found out we, support, airmen and their families when they're going through the process of adoption, I was like, ooh, let's do something great here, So I think that, by coming in and saying, what else can we do? They kind of supported that idea. So it's kind of, you haven't seen it because it's never happened like this before.
That's right.
So, but this is the first time we've kind of done sort of the workshop style format that you've all planned for.
Absolutely.
So why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about what attendees can expect? What are they coming into? What are they going to get from attending this workshop?
Sure. So there's a lot of things that we're going to try and cover over the course of this day. So we're going to start off, we've got the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services is going to come in, and they're going to kind of go through the process of what it would look like to become a foster parent, and kind of that licensing process with all of our families. And we've got a couple local adoption agencies who are going to come and share their services as far as domestic and international options. We really want this to be a resource, fair for families, but we also want this to be a support avenue for any family who is, currently fostering or who has adopted in the past. We want them to come to this as well. We want everyone to feel welcome and supported. And if there isn't something at this meeting or workshop, that really hits their need, we want to help them connect to that resource. So this is really us saying, hey, what do you need? How can we support you? And we're going to take a stab at it and provide a bunch of resources and see where we go from here. And hopefully people will feel, supported and educated and connected to the community.
Nice. That's great. So if you're interested in adopting, this can kind of be like a one-stop shop for you, right?
Absolutely. Adoption or foster care. So if you're interested in either one, we would welcome you to come.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't imagine just the amount of paperwork and other things and just processes that you have to go through, bureaucracy to go through an adoption, especially international adoption. I was looking at that, and this is only because it's like right on I'm going through my clearance process, right? So when you do a clearance in the military, secret, top secret, or whatever, you have to fill out a long questionnaire, and like they want to know every single little thing about where you've been, who you've interacted with. And so one of the big things on there is like international interaction. So I used to imagine working in international adoption must be just a real big ordeal. Is that
Absolutely.
true?
So, whether it's a private, domestic adoption or it's an international adoption, there's going to be a process that you have to walk through. There's going to be, home studies, and you said paperwork. and it's a lot of paperwork to go through. So, no matter, like I said, domestic or international, it is a process. And I think the most important thing for families is, when they're going through this, is to feel supported, but also to not get weighed down by that process.
Yeah.
And to be encouraged by it, to understand it, and to know what those steps are and, how to get to the goal. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you know or have any sort of statistics on the amount of adoptions that take place within the military every year or in general? Do you know how many families might have adopted children?
I don't have a stat on that as far as locally or Keesler, kind of Air Force Base wide. But I know that the need is large. And I know that, previously I did do another, practicum, and I did it with the Department of Children's Services here locally. And the need for families is extreme to the point where, we have a Harrison County Children's Shelter here locally, and that's really a housing agent for kiddos who they can't place in foster care. So, the need for foster families is at an all-time high, I would say, for here locally. And, there's a huge military community here, and there's no reason that, military families can't foster. And that's kind of one of the perceptions that people have, oh, I'm only going to be here for 3 years or, things like that. And that's one of the things that we want to say, 3 years is a great amount of time to do it, So we want to educate folks so that they can come in if they're interested in it, know the process, get it done so they can make the biggest impact while they're here.
Yeah, that would be my thinking is like, again, we're only here for, 3, maybe 4 years. Some people are there longer, but, I wonder what the adoption agencies take into consideration, if they take that into consideration in addition to everything else. I mean, obviously, we have more, consider more steady job, steady paycheck and all the things today, secure home and whatnot. Home life, I know, is very important. But is that sort of transient nature of our lives that we move around so much taken into consideration, and how much weight is that put on when, people are deciding whether or not they want to, let you adopt or foster children?
Sure. So realistically, when you want to foster, it can take, I would say, on average, 3 to 6 months to get licensed. So from the time you start, you have to go through classes, you have paperwork to do, you have to get, physical, you have a lot of things that you have to go through stepwise. As far as adoption is concerned, you have similar steps to go through as well. But when you're going through those steps, it depends on where you're at in the process of PCSing from, one place to the next, So if you start that process when you're fairly new at a location, you have a better chance at completing an adoption in one place. If you don't, have the opportunity to be here long enough to complete that process, it's not a all or nothing. You can go ahead and move to your next base. And a lot of times, you can work with agencies who can work in different states. And it's really just we're going to redo your home study when you get to your new home. And everything else stays the same, but it's just an update in paperwork. It can cost a little more money to pay for those additional, steps to be taken. But at the end of the day, if you think about the average American, they move too. So, it's just kind of part of that process. So, being military, not being military, moving a lot. And the big scheme, it's just a difference in the process that you take.
Now, you mentioned the need for adoption. Obviously there's children who don't have families. What would you say when you're looking to adopt? Are you kind of going to feel more pressure from like the local, like Biloxi, D'Iberville, Gulf Coast region, from the state, from national, international, like of those looking at like adopting, how does a parent choose sort of which pool of children who need attention to kind of pull from? Is that personal preference, or is that kind of the needs of sort of the larger, like, hey, we have a lot of, great kids in Alabama who need, a home versus, maybe not as much in this local region? Is that, how is that sort of factored in?
So there's a few different factors. So it's really personal preference. It's going to be 100% what's the best fit for your family. And, for me, my religious beliefs really was a big driving point as to why, we adopted 2 of our 4 kiddos. So that was a big, I would say a big reason why we decided to adopt. And so for us, it wasn't so much of, are we going to do international or domestic or what are we going to do? But, what was the best fit for our family, what suited our family. And, it kind of came our way. It was just kind of one of those things that, fell in our lap. So for us, that's kind of how it went. But, I think for families in general, when you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, hey, I'd like to grow my family in a non-traditional route, you have to look at, what are you better suited for? Are you looking to adopt an infant? Are you okay adopting an older child? Are you open to, looking at kiddos who have a special need and you know what that is and you know what they're going to need? Those are all kind of components of, you have to think about what you're looking for. There's private adoption, and then there's also doing foster care. And, the end result could be adoption with foster care as well. But I think the important thing to remember with that, too, is, foster care is really out there and exists to reunify families. So when you're looking at foster care as an option to grow your family, it's not always going to be your end goal. So going in with the heart of, I'm going to love and I'm going to serve and I'm going to help the children who come through my home in foster care is really that the mindset that you have to have. And I think if you can go in there and say, hey, we just want to be there and give a home to kiddos that are in a time of transition, that don't have a parental figure to care for them, that's really the heart of foster care. So, I think, if the opportunity arises for a lot of people when they're doing foster care and, parental rights do get terminated and there is no other family that's, able to, take the kiddos and adopt them, that it's a great opportunity, for families to grow. So I think there are a lot of different ways to grow your family. I think it's just figuring out what is best suited for your family.
And let's talk about your family. And you mentioned, obviously, your personal tie to adoption, which is, of course, that you said you've adopted 2 children. I want to know, from your perspective, why did you all decide to adopt? And why do, like most families, what are their sort of, determining factors for choosing adoption in the first place?
Sure. So personally, we have 2 biological children, our oldest and youngest, and our 2 kiddos in the middle we adopted. And for us, it was something that we always kind of felt a pull, I would say, to adopt. We always felt like, it's just a way that we were supposed to grow our family. We always felt a certain call to, help and serve with kids who were in vulnerable situations. So for us, I think it was just that natural pull. Like we just, we could, have 10 biological children, or we can look at the kids who are out there and go, we can parent you. You need a family. Come on over, So I think for us, it was just kind of like, how is it all going to piece together and fit for us? And, for us, it was a situation that my husband and I were traveling with our church. We were on a missions trip. We were in Honduras. And, my uncle, who lived in Alaska, we lived in Indiana, totally crazy. We see him once a year, called and said that he had an acquaintance that was looking for an adoptive family for their child. And we were like, oh, okay, and he called our hotel in Honduras. So it was just a crazy situation. And literally, we came home and 2 weeks later, we were in Alaska adopting a newborn. So it just, for us, we were already in the process of getting our home study done, and we had just completed it. And so for us, it literally was just an opportunity, and it was just the right timing. And we feel like it was God's plan for our family. And 11 months later, we adopted a half sibling. So for us, it just kind of, one came and the other one came shortly thereafter. So, I think for us, like, we felt like that was part of our plan for our family and our life. And then, I think a lot of other people come into this, kind of arena and think either, I have love to give, or I have the capacity for this, or I have, experienced a troubled, childhood growing up, and I want to help give back and, give another child maybe a less traumatic experience. I think there's a lot of different reasons and a lot of different things that come up for people, and what leads them to, whether it's fostering or adopting. There's a lot of different things that kind of come in there.
And do you plan to adopt in the future? Is that kind of in the cards for you?
So I think for us, we never say never. So, we have 4 kiddos, 12 to 4. And we just kind of leave it out there and go, if a situation came into our life, even if it was a friend, a relative, whatever, I think we are always open to the idea, but we're not currently pursuing it.
Right. Absolutely. What would you tell a prospective adopter that, who might be on the fence and might be considering this as a path for them, but they're not sure? It might be a scary idea, but they kind of want to give back. What would you tell somebody who's considering adoption, is on the fence, and what would you tell them?
I would say there's this really cool event coming up, and it's called the Foster Care and Adoption Option Workshop. And a part of that day, we've set aside, and we've got some families that have agreed to come and share their stories and do kind of a Q&A panel, answer questions. And then at the end of our event, around 11, we're going to open it up to an information fair. And at that information fair, we're going to have, all the different contributors of the day at it, but also those families have already agreed to kind of stick around and answer questions. And, a couple of them have said, I'd be willing to, meet somebody for coffee or, kind of share our story more in depth after the event as well. So I really feel like if you're thinking about this at all, or you think, in the future, I might want to do this, gathering information and resources and really learning what it is, the process, and learning from other folks who've already walked it is probably your best step one. So if anybody out there has, ever thought about it or says, I'm newly married and I'm, 20 and I want to do it before I'm 30, now's a great time to come and gather, because it's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
And it really depends on the process that you want to go through. And if you have the information, maybe you're here for a couple of years and you move on, you may have the platform to start the process right away at your next space. So it's, I think, really great to come and just educate yourself. And, that's why the AFRC is here to provide resources and really just to support families. So if this is something you're interested in, that's why we're here. And
maybe you can talk a little bit about the, after this ceremony, or after this workshop is done, what kind of services does the Airmen Family Readiness Center offer to the prospective adopter, adoptee, foster care person? What kind of services do they offer as in general?
So I think the big thing would be resources. If someone, comes to this or isn't able to make this, we will have resources available after the workshop. And if it's something that folks, gather information and they're like, hey, I came and I met someone at an agency, but it wasn't, I don't think, the right fit for us. We're so happy to say that's okay. You only need one agency or, one right fit for you. So we really want to be there to provide resources or to connect you to other families. We really want to just be that support for you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I do want to remind everybody it's the Foster Care and Adoption Option Workshop. It's May 22nd from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And I just want to make sure everybody knows it's Sablage Center, room 108. And I just want to offer to you ladies, is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
There's one quick thing I'd like to add. The Mississippi Heart Gallery is going to also be located in the main exchange out in the atrium, and it's basically a photographic display of kiddos who are currently available for adoption. So for, whatever reason, parental rights have been terminated, and they are literally waiting for a family to adopt them. So this photographic display will be up from Tuesday, May 14th through Thursday, May 23rd. And if you come and stop by, there will also be some flyers out there with little information on each of the kiddos' photos that you see. So it's a great way to meet some kiddos without physically meeting them, and also learn more about this process as well. So I would really encourage people to come and check it out.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Joy. Thank you, Rhonda, both for your time. I truly appreciate it. And thank you for informing us about this awesome event. Again, if you're interested in adoption or the process, head on out to the Foster Care and Adoption Option Workshop on May 22nd from 8:30 a.m. at the Sablage Center, room 108. All right, thanks so much, ladies. Have a great day.
All right, thank you, too.